From KQED Public Radio in San Francisco, I'm Michael Krasny. Coming up next in this morning's second forum hour, levels of cheating and plagiarism remain high in both high schools and colleges and universities, and confusion and concern have increased because of the internet. We'll look at the scope of the problem in the hour ahead, and we'll find out what is being done as well as what can be done. We'll have a panel and your calls and emails right after this. From KQED Public Radio in San Francisco, I'm Michael Krasny. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of this morning's Forum program. In this hour of Forum, we want to focus our attention on plagiarism in high school and higher education, a plague that many believe has increased with the advent of the internet and as a result of greater pressure on students to get higher grades. In a national survey, the Josephson Institute of Ethics reported that some two-thirds of all college and university students report incidents of cheating despite giving themselves high and laudatory self-appraisals for ethics and character. Services exist for students to buy essays and research papers, often written to specification for any style or format, on some occasions by active or retired professors. There also are services that provide all of the necessary research for essays or term papers for a price, even including MA theses. And for the right price, a student can have his or her work edited or can swap one of his or her papers for one written and turned in by another student. Then there is the phenomenon of what is called unpermitted collaboration. Jargon. That means the student's roommate or sweetie or mother or father does the paper writing. What can be done about the rising tide of plagiarism and work not done by students, exacerbated perhaps by the internet, and what ought to be done? That's our focus for this hour of Forum. Let me tell you who is joining us. Here in studio, we want to welcome Elise Wormuth, who is Associate Dean of College of Humanities at San Francisco State University. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Maggie Sokolik, who is a lecturer and coordinator in the College of Engineering Technical Communication Program at UC Berkeley. Good morning.
Nice to be here.
Good to have you here. We're also joined this morning by Tim Dodd by phone, Executive Director of the Center for Academic Integrity. He's with us from Durham, North Carolina. Welcome, Tim Dodd.
Oh, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And John Barry is joining us. Got caught up in traffic this morning, intending to be here in studio, but alas, the traffic thwarted that. John is founder and CEO of iParadigms, which provides the service turnitin.com. And welcome, John Barry.
Thank you very much.
We're also going to be, dare I say, hooking up, talk about jargon, this hour connecting with Yasha Harari, who is a partner in an organization called schoolsucks.com. We'll tell you more about that as the hour proceeds, and we're hoping to reach him in Israel. John Barry, I want to begin with you, and John has been featured in a number of articles in Economist and Newsweek, been on many television programs, and I guess the story is you were a grad student at UC Berkeley and became very indignant about student plagiarism, and so kind of invented the technology, or a lot of the technology for it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it happened. Back in the mid-'90s, while I was a PhD student at Berkeley in biophysics, I was also a teaching assistant. That's something a lot of grad students get the pleasure of doing. And as a teaching assistant, I thought it'd be kind of cool to let the students in these large lecture classes get a little bit more out of their lecture classes than they normally do. And I thought I'd do that by letting the students read and peer review each other's papers. Work like a charm. I published an article in Science Magazine back in 1996 titled How to Use the Internet to Extend Education. But the one unintended consequence was I had a parade of students come into my office hours and tell me about how a significant number of their peers in those classes were going to the class website, pulling off papers to turn into other classes. They were telling me about students who had cut and pasted information off the internet. They were telling me about students who had recycled papers from prior year classes, and I couldn't believe it. So in an effort to engage students in a type of collaborative learning that I thought would help them get more out of the class, the exercise turned into students engaging in a type of collaborative theft. So I applied some of the research that I was working on in biophysics and pattern recognition to recognizing patterns of unoriginal work in student papers, and that's how it started.
And Turnitin now is getting, what, thousands of submissions, like about 40,000 a day internationally, is that right?
So we really got going, you might say, in 2001. And from 2001 until today, Turnitin receives over 60,000 student term papers every single day. We have almost 6,000 institutional clients in more than 90 countries, and the usage of our service is doubling every year. So that means in a couple of months, as the fall semester goes into full swing, we should be receiving over 100,000 student term papers every single day.
And about, as you reckon, a third of those, or close to a third of those, are plagiarized.
And about 1/3 of those papers are less than original. We do not make the call as to whether something's been plagiarized. We just say, these words came from those sources. You're the professor. You're the professional. You make the call.
Well, often it's a difficult call because the truth of the matter is when students cut and paste particularly, they often don't understand what they're doing. I mean, that they're doing something that breaches the codes of what ought to be at least honorable work, representative of their own work. And in fact, speaking of codes, I know that, and I just want to get you on record on this, that you feel that these honor codes are kind of hollow, and yet there have been a number who have rather dramatically said that the honor codes and modified codes actually reduce this kind of plagiarism, or whatever you want to call it, to a great degree.
Yeah, I think it's lip service. As a practical matter, if honor codes or punishments or having students I don't know, do multiple drafts of their term papers, or, if instructors could actually spot this stuff, if any of that was true, and I consider all of that the status quo, you wouldn't have the sort of cheating statistics that you have today. You wouldn't see us catching 1/3 of 60,000 papers a day as being unoriginal. You wouldn't see the Josephson Institute with their statistics, and you wouldn't see the Center for Academic Integrity saying that almost 3/4 of the students they survey admit to cut and paste plagiarism, and other types of cheating. It just wouldn't be that. As a practical matter, it wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, all those numbers are running pretty high, and they're pretty close to each other. What's your sense, Elise Elise Wormuth, about what ought to be done? I mean, I think you've put a policy in and a system in that seems to be working, at least to a great degree. It's being adopted elsewhere as a kind of paradigm. So what are we talking about for this serious something crime, really? I would hesitate to call it a crime, but it is a crime.
In the College of Humanities at San Francisco State, in a lot of our courses, students do a lot of writing. So there are many more opportunities than there are in some other places in the university. When I was the coordinator of the composition program maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we started to get really serious about reporting plagiarism, and I started asking our many composition instructors and ESL instructors to report to the university's student discipline officer, and she very quickly got overwhelmed with the number of cases because, of course, she has to deal with the whole university, not just humanities. So we worked out a system where we handle the large proportion of the cases within the college. I set up guidelines for faculty to follow. I've done workshops with them, not only on what to do when they find plagiarism, but what to do to prevent it, maybe, or to keep it from happening.
One thing that is good in the preventive sense is just explaining what it is and making it very clear from the beginning, isn't it?
Right. Yes, I think so. Yeah, and I think most faculty in the college now have a really clear statement on their syllabus. But it also has to do with the kinds of assignments you give. If you give very standard assignments like write an essay on the imagery of sight and blindness in Othello, well, you can go out on the internet and in 5 seconds find 50 essays on that topic. But if you take your topics out of things that you've done in class, ask students to compare one text to another that's kind of not standard, there are ways that you can certainly cut down on.
Or how about requiring the student to come up with a topic and frame it himself or herself as opposed to assigning it?
Well, they have plenty to choose from out on the internet. I mean, that
no,
depends.
that's true. I mean, there's still an abundant number of choices, but at least it provides some modicum of critical thinking.